Welcome to Horsehair Hearsay
with me, Jen,
and me, Kate. Oh, and Patsy.
Elevating the equine industry with equine tech,
some law, some insights, impact, and a little bit of Canter Banter. Hello and welcome to our first pod. I'm Kate and this is Jen. Jen, you can start, no pressure. Tell us a little bit about you and why we're here.
My name's Jen, I'm an equine osteo. I've been in practice in the UK for the past 17 years and I built a big client base here in the UK, and I've also travelled a lot internationally, and recently I set up a tech company with the help of Kate and the amazing team here at KMC Legal.
Another outcome from COVID.
Yeah, I know.
Deciding you're going to build a big tech company. So I've known Jen for years. We're both horsey. I think I know you from, late teens probably. Let's not give our age away. So I've got a law firm in Staffordshire dealing with all sorts of areas of law, but we've got quite a large equine practice and a commercial department. We cross paths quite a lot in the equine industry, but more importantly, we help Jen with the development of terms and conditions and legals behind Equigate. So we realised that there's quite a lot of things that people in business and in the equine industry are not aware of, whether it be business structure stuff, day-to-day things that you can get help with, and the legalities behind the basics of the business terms and conditions, which we'll talk about quite a lot, and contracts, privacy, data handling, things like that. And we decided that we perhaps could help a lot of other people. We've got quite a lot to talk about, so that's why we've done this.
There's so much talking to you that is common sense for you, and you just reel this stuff out of like,
but
the rest of us is like, wow.
No, but that's like you talking about the different parts of a horse's body loses me. So we decided we ought to set up some kind of podcast, and then we spent quite a lot of time thinking about names. We came up with some interesting ones, like in the stirrups and things that we perhaps thought would be appropriate. Can you remember any of the other good ones?
No, technically.
Yeah, there was quite a few interesting ones. So Jen came into the office one day in her usual sensible manner and decided to put my wig on. There's a photo on our Instagram. So do you want to tell people how we've got the name?
Because these wigs, which are called are made of horsehair. I was like, mate, your wig's made of horsehair.
Yeah.
Which is pretty good. I did spend a long time, so I had a baby last year, and as some babies do, they keep you up all night and it sinks in with the Johnny Depp. So I spent quite a long time watching that.
Well, now you're qualified to whip me. Because,
technically,
yeah, because you know what hearsay means and
objection calls for hearsay.
Yeah.
Speculation calls for hearsay.
All the things that we actually don't use in this country. But anyway, so the hearsay comes from the Johnny Depp trial.
Yeah.
So,
and the fact I think I'm a fully qualified lawyer now because I watched it all.
Yeah. Okay, so we got horsehair and hearsay from our joke about the wig and obviously the passion for the Johnny Depp trial.
In all fairness, I've got to give the nod. It was Steve that came up with that.
Oh, okay.
It was. I was like, babe, horsehair wig, and he was like, call it horsehair and hearsay.
We don't see much of Steve on Instagram yet.
I'm trying to convince him to get on there a bit
but
more.
But Steve helped develop Equigate as well, didn't he?
He's as much part of the company as I am. He's just kind of behind the scenes, so I'm trying to get him on the stories a bit more reluctantly.
So I suppose how we get to where we are today is what made you go from standing out in the cold. I know you've been into some really fancy countries and seen some glamour and glitz, but you've also been in muddy fields and what have you. What made you decide, very optimistically, I'm going to be a tech CEO?
Yeah.
which we were like, are you being serious? And
COVID's got a lot to answer.
Seems a million miles away, but you've smashed it. Do you want to explain how you got there and why you decided to... Because you're not that techie. I mean, you've been helping set up the equipment this morning, and putting batteries in things was a bit painful to watch.
I really am not techie at all, but out of necessity. I'd reached the point in my business where I was massively time starved, had this huge wait list, not enough hours in the day, not to mention I was spending £600 a year on paper and ink for my record
That's
keeping.
no good for the trees.
It's no good for the trees. So yeah, just taking the step to try and I'm obsessed with time. Time is all that we have and don't. And I constantly feel like wastes of time are just like the bane of my life.
And do you think when you've had a baby that makes a big difference as well? Because I mean, I saw a quote on Instagram this morning. It was actually about dads, not mums, but it kind of relates. And it was like, you can buy them all the presents in the world, you can take them on all fancy holidays, but all they will remember is the fun things you've done together and the time that you spent.
Exactly.
And that kind of hits quite hard, doesn't it? And time goes so quick. Everybody says when you have a baby, it flies and you think, oh, whatever, but it does, doesn't it?
It really does, yeah, like 5 minutes. So actually, somebody messaged us last night who's just started using the app to say it's saving her tons of time and she gets to spend more time with her baby, and her baby was born a couple of days before Ots was. So I'm like, oh, I get what you're saying. So yeah, it was just to kind of plug all of these complete wastes of time in all of our businesses. Any kind of equine practitioner feels the same. So messaging, so that instead of searching for messages, all your messages are there. Automated reminders, digital note keeping, invoicing, payments, all of this handles all of that. And yeah, here we are.
Well, I suppose as well, when we went to one of the farrier CPD days, which we kind of fell into talking at, meant to do like a 10-minute slot and we were there 45 minutes. I suppose when you first started developing it was more on the basis that you wanted more time and to be more organised, but you kind of stumbled across massive compliance issues, like what happens if somebody takes a box out the boot of your car, or your car gets stolen, or you leave something on the train. So paper causes big compliance problems, doesn't it? Handling people's information full stop is a big issue, and I know that wasn't like your objective to solve that when you started, but I think the more we've talked, the more we've realised there are really big gaps in the equine industry. And the reason why we think we can help people compared to a lot of other people that go out and help with come across a lot of solicitors that deal with equine law, but they don't have a clue. I mean, if you hear some of the quotes, without, I'm not here to slag anybody else off, absolutely not, but if you hear some of the quotes that people put in correspondence to us when we're on the other side on an equine matter, you think, have you actually ever seen a horse in real life? So I think the fact that we've got horses, I don't know how many I've got, but
let's not count.
I think it tops 20.
Let's stop counting at that point.
We have real life knowledge about these things, and we've experienced everything probably go wrong in business and in horses. Mm-hmm. So we're kind of bringing together all the history to move forward in a better way ourselves and share that, so other people don't necessarily have to have our mistakes, they can learn from us. I think the app has made us realise there's just a big gap with compliance, record keeping, taking payments, cash flow as well, because when we talk to the farriers, a lot of farriers obviously are reliant on people paying them, and not in the age where they're going to be constantly messaging people, sending out automated reminders, and they need a tool that's going to help them do that, so they're not the baddie ringing and saying, oh, you owe me money, and distancing themselves from chasing money, I suppose, is a big thing as well.
So many of us now get paid digitally, and keeping on top of that, it can just be a huge waste of time. So again, we just built all of these features in to try and help to take care of that, and also to, as you've touched on, protect practitioners. It's only since we've started talking to other people, you're like, there are huge gulfs of...
it is Red Bull, it's not Diet Coke. No, it's not Diet Coke, it's not wine.
I was going to say, it's not even midday yet.
Not promoting Red Bull at all.
I was going to say, the podcast sponsored by Red Bull now. So there's loads of really cool stuff, and as I said, talking to you, there's so much knowledge that you've got that even just touching on it, there's tons for us to learn. Kate and I did a podcast with the lovely Rhiannon over at the Equestrian Business Specialist podcast, just talking about how you can protect yourself when you're in business, and it was we did need a dinger for the terms and conditions.
So I think it's such a long-standing traditional industry, anything with horses. Obviously, they were there before cars. So much of it's done on a handshake and on trust, and that's all right until it goes wrong. And then I think it's even worse where people have tried to gap that by having contracts or having things on their website but not going far enough. So they're almost tripping themselves up more because they're using things they've copied and pasted off the internet or general contracts that are not bespoke to their needs. So, I mean, we have quite a lot of equine disputes on sale and purchases. And the hardest ones to deal with are, ironically, where there is some form of contract and the contract hasn't been properly thought out and people have just cornered themselves, really. So we talk a lot about terms and conditions, and we'll do a whole podcast on it, because obviously that gives you the flexibility to continue to change them, and you can just put so much more in there, so much more. And it's scary when you go and buy a horse and somebody goes, oh, here's a 20-page contract. I mean, I'm a lawyer and I wouldn't want to read it. So it just needs simplifying how people deal with their terms of business, really. And I know when we look at Equigate, we're talking about helping people when they set up on their new businesses with doing their terms and conditions for them. So we will do a whole podcast on it because it's just too much to talk about. And our answer to every question on that podcast is terms and conditions. But yeah, I think the big thing that we've sort of realised, and I mean it applies to all of us that are professionals, it applies to myself as well, you are paid when you've got your hands on the job. So you're only being paid when you're treating that horse. And people tend to, think that we're expensive as lawyers, you're expensive as a therapist. Somebody said to me the other day that a farrier was expensive, and I thought, well, actually, when you look at all the time they've put in, the risk they're putting themselves at, you're not only paying them for that hour, you're paying them for the years of training and everything else that goes into it. So in order to be profitable, you've got to try and have your hands on the horse as much as possible, if that makes sense. And I think that's what you're trying to achieve, really, isn't it, for people?
Absolutely. Since I've shifted to using the app, so obviously a quick important thing to say is that therapists have been obliged by our insurance to keep records. We should all be keeping detailed records on every appointment, and I hope we all have been for forever now, since switching to a more digital method. So I dictate my notes, I leave voice notes. It's saving me 10 minutes on every appointment. Now, if you saw 6 horses a day and you're saving 10 minutes on each horse, you could stay working for the same amount of time but actually see an extra horse in that time.
And that's a big difference over
huge.
The month and then over the year, isn't it? It's a holiday or what have you, and you put it into to context.
And if you flip that on its head, so the reason Kate and I have been involved so much with the farriery side of things, we've spoken at a conference already, we're going down to the BFBA.
My own farrier collared me for some free CPD yesterday because obviously they're getting more and more compliance led so far as having to do CPD, but that obviously is running onto them actually having to keep records, which is problematic for people that have been practicing for 30 years and not had to keep any records. So.
And if they were to switch to a paper and ink system as I had previously, if that was to take them an extra 10 minutes on every appointment, they could be losing the equivalent of 1 set of shoes a day,
which is a lot.
Yeah, so that's huge. So again, we built in loads of stuff with those guys in mind, hands-free input and things like that. So there's loads of cool stuff that we're going to be touching on. We're going to touch on other industries. We've got some great guests lined up. We've got a podcast lined up to talk about the financial side of things with some business advice. The legals, obviously, from your perspective, some other professionals, some breeders,
horse owners,
riders,
and athletes farriers as well.
Yeah,
just getting insights from everybody, really, and there might be a little takeaway point from each one that changes how you run your business, or even some of it's just life hacks, isn't it? If you've got horses, it'll just help as well. And again, we're going to dig deep into structures and everything, make it a bit fun because obviously it's quite dull. But a lot of people, say like a farrier, don't realise, I could actually be a limited company and that's going to protect me and my assets. And it goes so far because it's not just protecting you from debts and from being sued. You also look at, it sounds a bit doom and gloom, but separations, protecting your assets in that kind of situation. And if it's in a limited company, it makes it a bit easier. So there's lots of things that once we start to dig into a subject, there's so much more that follows. So we will be spending quite a lot of time helping new startups, because I think nowadays, I mean, I don't know what your experience is, but my dad's a vet and has a lot of new practicing vets coming through, and there's such fear by anybody that's training at the moment about compliance and about being sued, that people actually don't really do their job properly because they're so worried about being sued. And I know when we were at the Farriers conference, one of the questions was, well, my organisation and regulatory body says, for example, you have to finish a job once you start it, but then people are putting themselves at risk because they're too scared to say, actually, this is dangerous now, or I'm putting myself at risk, or the horse's welfare is at risk. So I think we're going to talk quite a lot about balancing out the regulatory side of things, which absolutely you've got to comply with, but then going a bit deeper and saying, well, do those obligations apply if you're putting yourself at risk or you're putting a horse at risk? So we're going to have quite a lot of discussions about that as well, because we've spoken to farriers that would stay, all afternoon trying to do a 2-year-old's trim, and quite frankly, it's dangerous and putting the horse at risk as well.
It's not their job. Yeah, it's not within the remit, and I think again it brings us back to the terms and conditions. Like, what parameters are you happy working within? And if you are able to clearly communicate those to your client, it helps your client to, they're more comfortable in their position in the relationship, and it helps them to make the most from their appointments with you. So I think there's tons that we can
knowing their obligations. People think terms and conditions are all about what your business has to do, what your business's obligations are, but also you can use them to put obligations on your client. So I know, again, this is a hot topic, and when I brought mine in a rush yesterday, I thought about it, and when my blacksmith came, is you can put obligations, for example, and I understand why farriers would want this in there, that the horse must be in with clean, dry feet, because obviously a nail in the wrong place can cause them a problem. But if that's clearly in their terms and conditions, the obligations on the owner, and they're aware of them, there's not going to be any debate about it if they get there and the horse has got, knee deep in mud and you can't see its feet. So you can put those kind of obligations on.
Amazing. Yeah.
So when we talk about future guests, we're going to focus a lot on helping future startups and getting people compliant and organised, really, aren't we? That's going to be the main focus. We have got an Instagram page which gives little tips. Try and do tips every day. And they're mainly compliance, legal and tech tips on how to keep your records, but there's lots of other anecdotes on there. I think we did have a joke yesterday.
That was a good joke, actually. I had to read it a couple of times, but
did you not get it?
Some of the best jokes need explaining, Kate.
Okay. I'm not going to go over the joke again, but it was basically the horse had his back done, so he felt really fresh. So when he went to the show, he was telling everyone he was the main man.
Oh, okay. I was getting on the payoff.
You didn't even get the joke, did you?
No, I didn't.
Okay. The jokes are not that good. Don't follow us for the jokes. Only I get the jokes.
The motivational stuff's really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Starting a business can be really lonely. It can, and as well if you're having. So the thing with business is that you're guaranteed to get setbacks. I know I've had a bunch. I think you've had a bunch along the way. And so I think just that bit of camaraderie from other entrepreneurs to just try and help you to understand that, there's bad bits, but your only option is to keep putting one foot in front of the other, and it does get better.
And perspective as well. I mean, my job's a bit easier because it gives me so much perspective, and when my staff get really stressed, I'm like, well, you could be going to prison. So that's kind of my answer to everything. You could be dead or going to prison. Everything else you can fix. So one thing that you've pointed out there is it can be lonely, and particularly if you're on your own or your partner's not interested at all in what you do, which is really common in the horse world, I think we can safely say. Or you don't necessarily want to speak to your friends about it because from the outside you're developing this business. You don't want to be going, oh, I'm feeling really stressed today, or what's the corporation tax threshold, or, things like that. Feel free to drop us a direct message on Instagram and you'll get me or Jen and we'll give you the answer.
If we can.
Well, yeah, or we'll signpost you to someone that can help.
Exactly.
Whatever the outcome will be, you'll have some positive steps, whether it be some advice or someone else to go and talk to.
Perfect.
So that's our quick tips on the Instagram, and sneak peek into the future is, as I say, lots of guests. It's not just going to be us chatting away.
We are quite riveting though.
Oh, yeah. Well, we have asked for some questions, and I'm not sure what they're going to be, but lovely Georgina is in the background Can you remember the questions? You got them printed out?
Hi, quick one for you, Jen. So now you're running a fantastic tech company. Are you going to continue to treat horses, or is that going to be the back burner?
No, I'm absolutely going to keep treating horses. That was my first kind of
She's
passion.
not allowed to stop.
I was going to say, you'd have my guts for garters. So, as I mentioned before, Equigate is very much a team effort between my husband Steve and I, and with the roles that we've both got within the business, it gives me the ability to keep working treating horses, and it's obviously by being on the front line out every week experiencing what life's like for practitioners that we're best able to tailor the app to be exactly what we need it to be. We launched in April and we're already on the 9th revision. We've had some great feedback from some of the more international practitioners that we're working with. So every suggestion that we get, we're looking to integrate. So for all that it's very hands-on from the business side of it, the way that I want to make sure that we keep this as relevant as possible to as many people as possible will be to keep my hands on the horses.
I was just going to say that because obviously you went to the conference in Germany at the weekend,
yes.
And met lots of people that feel like they know you and like you know them, but it's only from Instagram Live. And if you weren't still out there on the floor, you wouldn't be coming across these people every day. Because of course, when you go and treat horses, you're seeing all sorts of people. You're seeing vets, you're seeing horse dentists. You're not just seeing a horse when you're on yards, are you? So I suppose to develop Equigate properly, you need to be out there.
Yeah. So the conference we were at was the WEO, which is the Worldwide Alliance of Equine Osteopaths conference. That was held at the Vlugen Institute in Germany, which is where I've just finished another 3.5-year qualification in equine osteopathy. I know, yeah.
She's not only got good hair,
but it was great to meet so many different practitioners, and I think it's being in these environments as a practitioner that you're best able to help to see the commonalities and see the areas where we need integration. So yeah,
because a lot of these apps, I mean, particularly like with case management with us, with law, you look at it and you think these people have never done a day's work in this area.
Yeah.
Because this just doesn't make any sense. Whereas yours does, because it's what you do. So
it took 3 years really to develop, because it would be like 2 steps forward, one step back. I'd make 2 steps forward, then I'd remember another scenario of when something happened once, and we'd have to rejig the flow so it would be more malleable to more different people. So yeah.
So the short answer is yes. You'll still be treating
short
horses.
answer, yes.
The waiting list's very long, but you're still there.
Brill, question for you now, Kate. What's the most common client issue that you have? Maybe I should specify that and say equine issue.
I was going to say maybe we should caveat that. So equine, I still do oversee the equine department, but Lucy, who's going to come on one of our pods.
Oh yay!
Yeah, Lucy oversees the day-to-day of the equine department. We have lots of basic stuff that's not really confrontational or sort of too draining.
Litigious.
I know what. That was a test for you.
Yeah.
So that'd be, licenses to occupy and basic livery contracts that are generically going to be rolled out by a yard. But I have to say, and it's quite sad really, that the main thing is disputes over horses. Purchase and sales are just ridiculous at the moment so far as the level of litigation. Now, some of them that we deal with are pretty ridiculous because people will have a horse and we're representing the seller. They'll have had a horse, I'm being a bit extreme in my example, but they'll have had a horse for 3 weeks. They'll have tried it twice, had it vetted. They suddenly just decide they don't quite like the horse anymore. And they'll say, well, it was bay on the advert. So I've been missold this horse because it's actually chestnut. And those sorts, some of them are really ridiculous. And it's clearly just people changing their mind about buying a horse. And unfortunately, the way that the climate is at the moment, you get so many people trying it on as well, even just to get some money back. But we do represent a lot of people who have been missold horses. And the saddest scenarios really are with ponies. So we have quite a lot of scenarios and we're really sympathetic with it because we've all got horses. Well, just checking with Georgie, but 90% of our staff are horsey, even the boys. So we're really sympathetic with it because a lot of us have grown up with having your first pony, and a lot of us have probably fallen off some quite dangerous ponies. And a lot of people are going out and investing serious money, tens of thousands of pounds, to buy safe ponies. And my little girl's 3. My priority was to get a safe pony. It doesn't matter what colour it is, what it looks like, as long as it's safe. And a lot of people are selling ponies and saying, riding school level pony, really safe, and it's flipping dangerous. So I would say the most common thing we've got at the moment is making claims against potentially dangerous ponies that have been sold as super safe, and that's quite sad. But
certainly, this is a subject for a future podcast that we're definitely going to be covering from a couple of different perspectives, because I think that's going to be quite an interesting one.
I mean, from our point of view, when we're representing people, we represent a lot of equine agents, and they can be confused with somebody that actually owns the horse, and they can end up being hit with a claim for the full value of a horse, and all they've done is had a small percentage out of it. So unfortunately, it's making your position really clear. And if you make your position clear as to what you're making and you're really transparent, it's going to save a lot of problems in the long run. And I mean, transparency as a whole, I think, is probably the biggest lesson with purchase and sales, because a lot of people say, I don't know, I'll try and think of an example, because I have people ask me these questions all the time. He's not very good hacking out on his own and things like this, but it's not necessarily going to stop the horse being sold, but they leave it out because they don't want to lose the sale, and then they have a big problem that costs them a lot of money in the long run. Whereas if they're just open with people, as long as people, I mean, I've bought some horses with some serious issues. My best horse, his feet look like they're on backwards. You know who I'm talking about, old Fugly. And when I bought Fugly, I was told, this is his issues, this is how you manage him, and it's fine, because when you deal with it. And I think sellers need to be more open to protect themselves. And if they say, well, I told you that he doesn't like hacking out on his own, or he's scared of tractors, then at least people are in a safe position because they know. So short answer is definitely sales and purchase.
Brill. This question is to both of you. Don't mind who goes first. What's the best bit of business advice you've been given?
God.
I'll let you go first there, Kate.
Okay, well, 2, I think.
Okay, go ahead.
And I think they're relevant to everybody.
Okay.
So this is a good friend of mine who's really successful in business, said to me to charge for everything you do, because you can really get into, particularly in my job, I'm not sure if you suffer it quite so much, but people saying, oh, can you just give me a bit of advice on this?
While you're here, can you just?
Do you mind?
While you're here, can you just?
Can you just have a look at this?
Yeah.
Do you mind this? And what people don't realise from our point of view as a lawyer, if you give somebody free advice and they rely on it and it goes wrong, you're liable, and you've got lots of obligations whenever you're given any advice, and you can't meet those for free. So think of all the time you've spent getting qualified, think of all the risk you've taken, if you've got your own business, putting your house on the line, putting your family on the back burner, all these things you've done, you have to charge, you have to, for everything you do. If you're good at what you do and you believe in yourself, value yourself and always charge for what you do, and charge properly. I mean, obviously you give your friends some discount, that's fine, but just be very careful. Don't do things for free, because it's undervaluing yourself if you do that as well. And then the second one, which is kind of similar, is to say no. So we use the farriers as an example. People will always try and help, because people in their DNA, most of us, want to help people. And take a farrier as an example. If there's a horse that looks particularly dangerous, but it's a client that you do 15 of their horses for, and they say, oh, I've got this young one in, he's just come in, can you come and trim his feet? And it's obviously a really dangerous situation. You need to learn to say no if you don't feel comfortable. Go with your gut, and don't be railroaded into doing these things, because you have to look at the potential issues. So say you're shoeing a horse that you know really you shouldn't be, and this could go wrong. What's the profit in that for you? It's under £100. One letter that your lawyer's going to draft is going to be an hour's time opening the file, reviewing everything, doing the compliance. You're going to be paying £300 just for a letter. So I think my biggest bit of advice is, don't try and squeeze the pennies and always say yes. Think about the longer game. If it goes wrong, what's this actually going to cost me?
That's really, really good advice. Really good advice.
And I think you've probably suffered that when you've been asked to go in. Yeah. Particularly when you first started out and you've been asked to go and see things that other people have rejected working on.
Yeah, exactly. And they forget to mention, or they'll let you get halfway through and go, he's been very good, he tried to kick the last person's face off. You're like, oh, good. Thanks for telling me at the beginning.
Yeah.
But yeah, so...
What's yours?
I was given this bit of advice by a really, really well-respected farrier when I very, very first started treating. And he said, because I asked him, I was like, you've done this for ages and you've worked all over the world. What advice do you have? And he said, remember that your body is going to wear out before your brain does.
I mean, mine feels about 80 now.
I didn't feel great this morning. And he said, there's only so many treatments that your body's going to be able to give. In the same way he said that in his body there's only so many horses my body's going to be able to shoe. The longer you do something, the better you get at it, and make sure that you charge accordingly.
But the harder it is for your body.
Yeah, precisely. So like the closer you get to
being
the
perfect,
end,
your body can't do it, your mind knows how to do it. It's supposed to like being a footballer, isn't it? You know all the tactics by the time you're 40, but your body's not like it was at 20.
100%. So increase your prices fractionally, and my prices do go up fractionally every year. But that's because the longer that you do it, the more
I think you should do mine for free.
It's always worth an ask. I can always say no, though. I've just had some great advice.
Especially black ones that have got a biting and a kicking end.
Listen, somebody told me once, make sure that you never buy a black horse with no white on it. And I was like, why? And they said that they need a bit of white on there so they've got somewhere to let the devil out.
Okay, well,
and
remember that with Valerie.
Some of the most dangerous ones that I've worked on have been black with no white hair on.
Well, she liked you.
She was quite friendly in the end. I'll let it off.
So, is that your main bit of advice then?
Yeah, that's it.
Just remember you get old and fall apart and look
100%.
after yourself.
Yeah.
And that kind of ties in with my say no.
The more you sound like a glow stick when you wake up in the morning, the closer you are to perfection.
Okay, and death.
Well, Rays of Sunshine with Jen and Kate.
Yes.
Ken and Jate? Who's that?
Don't know.
Well.
So one of the things that has been on our Instagram page, which I can't believe has had 21,000 views on it, is your Equigate gear.
Yeah.
So do you want to tell people about your Equigate gear? Because we're going to be doing a draw tomorrow for that. Would it be tomorrow? Is it 15th tomorrow?
Yeah.
15th tomorrow.
Okay.
I'm not allowed to enter. George, you have to enter and then you can give it to me.
We'll keep adding your notes.
Yeah.
Okay, yep, so...
I think Patsy's even entered.
I hope so. How many accounts has Patsy got now?
Quite a few.
We had a bunch of amazing sets made up for Equigates. These beautiful show rugs that I designed. They've got like a padded neck and they've got the front flap. They've got hidden crosshair singles, nice and shiny on the inside as well, so that you could move them like from a chestnut horse to a grey horse and it wouldn't take the hair with it.
Or get kicked as you take it off your black horse.
Exactly, yeah, the one with no white on it. And it's a matching set, so you get like a
proper
beautiful
matchy
number and the ear sets as well. Do you like the impression there? Yes. And
you could have worn your Equigate ears in the podcast, couldn't you?
Mr. So yeah, we had a bunch of these made up that generally we give away to Equigate users. So as a subscriber to Equigate to be using as a platform, if you are an equine or a canine therapist, a farrier, a dentist, or any other kind of animal practitioner, then we run draws fairly regularly. But
so they can give it away to their clients as well. So that's
Exactly.
another important thing. There's a few people that I've noticed on our post that have tagged, and I said to you, they definitely haven't got a horse.
Yeah.
But it's for them to give to a partner, or if they want to use it in their own equine business, to give it away. So you don't necessarily have to be having it for yourself.
Yeah. So I used that as a tool when I was growing my therapy business, to be able to offer these to give away. So again, just to be able to support newer startup businesses was really important for us at Equigate, but being able to give them away. We had a giveaway recently where we gave 3 sets away and 3 subscriptions. So we had some mega practitioners who won that. But this one obviously is open to everybody.
Everyone, yeah, for yourself or for anyone else.
Yeah.
And I think that's back to the whole thread of this, because you've had horses yourself. They're designed for people how you would want them if you've got a horse. It's not just somebody's gone, oh, this looks pretty. And giveaways is something we'll be talking about as well, because in general marketing, I think we had a brief chat when we were talking about giveaways about Bloomfield's horse boxes.
Yeah.
So I was area rep for Area 22, which is Staffordshire and the West Midlands, for British show jumping, and we ran an elite show for a few years, which was fantastic.
It's amazing.
And the headline sponsor for that was Bloomfield horse boxes, and it was when they first started out. And I remember that I'd heard of them through the like and share post on their giveaway of their numbers, and they have done an amazing job. And if anybody looks at their Instagram, we're not here to market them in any way, although we would like a free lorry, wouldn't we?
That's worth a try.
Worth a try.
Yeah.
They are beautiful.
Yeah.
But yeah, how they've grown their business, don't think, oh my gosh, they're like a huge international business and I can't do any of that. You can take things from big businesses and make them work in your little business as well. So I think people need to not be fearful and be brave and put your own face out there. It's a bit scary, but Jen is the perfect face for Equigate, and she was like, I don't want to put my face on, I'm keeping it faceless. And I think since people have seen you, it's made Equigate a bit more tangible as well. So we'll give some little tips away as well. So yeah, just our closing thoughts are, get in touch with us if you've got any questions, but more importantly, give us some guest suggestions.
Yes,
Who
even
do
if
you want to
think
see?
you are going to be a great guest, so if you think you've got,
we've had a few people offer up, and the fact they've offered up shows what they're going to be like on here. So we've got a couple coming, which will be very entertaining. They don't have to be. So, Emma's going to kill me if I say like stuffy accountants, but she's definitely not a stuffy accountant. But they can be fun as well.
Yeah, exactly. So if you have any subjects you'd like us to cover, if you have any guest suggestions, or if you're in a profession that you think you might have some really great content or advice to offer to our listeners, do just pop us a message. Yeah. And as we said, any questions you've got in the meantime, just get in touch.
Thanks for listening. If you've made it to the end, well done.
Yeah, well done.
Thanks, guys, and we'll see you next time.
Bye. Bye.